It's streaming.
It is streaming.
Yes.
Okay, we'll go ahead and bring the informal committee back to order. We had a little streaming issue. We apologize. Want to make sure that the live feed was back up online for those people that couldn't be here in person. So we will continue. We're ready now for Mount Juliet Police Department. Franklin Durii. Mr. Durii was terminated for violation of policies and procedures. We have a representative of the Mount Juliet Police Department here. Sir, if you would say your name and rank and tell us why you're here.
Sergeant Corey Cook from JPD. We requested decertification due to being terminated for conduct of becoming an officer, and there was 2 pending TBI charges. One was again conduct of becoming and misuse of government resources.
What's the status of the charges?
I believe they're still pending. I'm not sure of the court date, and I believe I have some information saying that they might seek a different court date in January.
Stem back, what I'm reading here stems back to a domestic related issue.
Yes, sir.
Did y'all find that he used the criminal justice portal in a manner that was not authorized?
The TBI, yes. The investigation we conducted was strictly on what policy violations were committed. But to my knowledge, the TBI was charging with misuse of the portal to run people that was not needed.
And that coincided with your administrator at the department's logins?
Yes.
Commissioner Isbell, so that there are pending criminal charges, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I don't mind passing this if some of the board members are want to hear that outcome. It may resolve itself.
Commissioner Isbell, I agree. The other one was a little more clear cut. I would personally like to have a little more information and we can see what happens with court action.
I'll make a motion to continue the case until criminal actions are resolved.
Second.
We have a motion to basically, are we saying put this in a suspended status until? Okay,
That's correct.
Is he on administrative leave? Or y'all on been terminated?
It was terminated, yes, sir.
I'm sorry to put you through this, but we may have to ask you to come back at a later date.
Yes, sir.
But
and one of the we have a new suspension order that you and I were discussing a little bit earlier, Chairman. And so I think if and we might want to hear from Mr. Durii too on this, if he wants to put this in a suspended status instead of testifying here and the board making a determination that to see if he would be willing to sign a voluntary surrender till such time as the court case is heard and all of that is discharged.
But Mr. Durii, you mind coming up for just a minute? There's a motion and second on the floor, but we'll bring you in as part of the discussion. Sir, with that, you do not have to answer any questions at this time, but what we want to explain to you is a procedure that we do. It would allow your license to kind of be in a holding pattern. Is that proper to say, counsel?
Well, it would be suspended.
So it would be suspended, but it could be reinstated at a later time, or we could have been going on and be decertified later, but we're just kind of holding here until your matter's done in court.
And so I apologize for being here. So this is a weird situation for me. So I've been in this for 18 years. I work undercover for a lot of the agencies behind me and stuff. And my favorite supervisor is Daniel's right here. So I apologize for being here. I expect my charges to be dismissed in January. You know what I'm saying? So then even if the PD that terminated me and stuff, I still face a decertification and stuff. And so
Well, you may or may not, sir. That's reason, we can deal with part of it today, but based off what I'm seeing, that you have pending issues in the courts.
Mhm.
We're continuing that until the courts determine,
Right.
and if there is a dismissal, then that may reflect well in how to proceed here. And so we may let the courts do their job before we proceed any further.
And so I'm not able to work at the law enforcement status
That would be correct until this is resolved.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So would the committee be willing to amend the motion to be suspended status till the court proceedings are handled if he signs a
Yes.
default or not a default, the surrender, voluntary surrender?
Right. I mean, it would make it somewhat moot, I guess, because he'd be in a suspended, his certification would be suspended pursuant to the terms of the order. But
Question then, if it's suspended, then he just has to reapply to activate it.
right.
Doesn't really have to do this.
I don't.
Or we just have to vote on it.
I would want him to come back to address, because the department may still have information that they want to proceed on due to the violations, but
I don't mind coming back.
okay. But I amend my motion or to correct to what counsel and the director had spoken.
Are you willing to sign that order?
What's the order exactly? I'm sorry.
It's going to be a voluntary, you're going to voluntarily give up your post for the period of time while this is in a suspended status. In other words, we're not going to decertify you, but you're going to basically sign an order, and correct me, counsel, if I'm incorrect, and you're basically going to agree to a voluntary suspension. And during that time, you cannot work as a law enforcement officer, but once all this is cleared up, if the department, still wants to pursue decertification and you come here, if they don't, then you can come in front of this body and they can vote to basically, in that order, and then you can go back to being a law enforcement officer again. But it's not a decertification. You're just agreeing to basically be placed in a status of suspended, so you can't work as a law enforcement officer.
Right. And so will it show that on the document? I'm sorry. That I'm being suspended, or does it show it decertified?
It would show he's suspended in the agreement
Okay.
order, and it would show he's suspended in the CADIS as well.
That's fine.
It was so voluntary.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, I mean, the agreed order is voluntary by nature, right?
So that's a yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a motion, the amended motion, and do we have a second on that?
Second is
Second, Isbell. right, so we have a motion to suspend the status of the decertification with an agreed suspension order. And a second, any discussion? Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. All right, thank you very much, sir. If you would see our attorneys here before you leave, and they'll tell you the next steps, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Tennessee Department of Safety and Anthony P. Jackson. Mr. Jackson was terminated for violation of policies and procedures. We have representatives from the Department of Safety.
Yes, sir.
If you would just step up and identify yourself by name and rank and or title, and tell us why you're here, sir.
I'm Sergeant Jeremy Wilhobb with the Office of Professional Accountability for the Department of Safety. Mr. Jackson was involved in a departmental vehicle crash on September the 24th. On video review during the investigation, when he filled out his report for the crash or incident report, he reported the correct date but the wrong time. He reported the incident occurred at 6:38 and not at 4:57 when the incident occurred on video. When he was interviewed, he initially stuck with the story of that time until he was confronted with conflicting evidence. And then he admitted that the crash actually did occur, and he didn't report the crash immediately to his supervisor when the crash happened.
Was this involving another vehicle, or what's the circumstances of the crash?
So he was investigating a crash and he left the scene and backed into a bridge pillar.
So the only person that's out on this is the bridge builder, and
The car.
how much damage was to the state's car?
Sir, I don't have those numbers with
Well,
me.
evidently it was
It
dry.
was dry.
Okay. So what we've got in here is a policy issue that he wasn't rapid enough to notify, hey, I've hit a bridge pillar.
Well, then untruthful with the
Understand.
interview and with the report.
And this trooper had any disciplinary actions that you can disclose in history? I mean, do you know anything about the trooper?
Sir, I don't have that history.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, that's
I was
okay.
trying to.
Chair. Commissioner Isbell, so the untruthfulness, can you get on that a little bit more for me? I have a hard time hearing you. I don't know if the mic is on up there or not. But what, hit on the untruthfulness.
He reported the crash to happen at 6:38 the same day. But the crash happened at 4:56, 4:57 that day. He knowingly didn't report the crash when it happened. He left and done something else and came back to the same crash scene that day to do a follow-up. So when the discrepancy was found, when he was interviewed, when he was asked about that day and what happened, he still continued with the story of the crash happening at the later time, when in fact it happened before. So he filled out his whole report based off the wrong time and when it happened.
So there was a 2-hour difference, and I know in my previous experiences that if you scratch a state's car, there's repercussions, so to speak. But I want to make sure there was nobody, no other vehicles, no pedestrians, no private property damage. It was just hit a. Do you know? Did he say what he went and done?
He said he had to take something to, I think, Tiptonville.
Something
correct.
work related,
Something related. He had to take property to somebody, if I recall.
and he just came back and
Followed up with the crash.
followed up.
again.
He ended up reporting it. It just didn't get reported on the radio immediately when it happened. Is that? Is that right? Yeah, well,
Right.
okay, timely manner. Okay. I'm tracking with you now, sir. I don't have anything further.
Any other questions from the, committee?
I think it's already been asked, but, his disciplinary record in the past, you don't really know.
There was a crash in the past, but I don't know all the history. I don't know the details of the history.
He's here.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Don't have you have anything else you want to add? Mr. Jackson. And could you identify for the record, please?
Yeah, Anthony Jackson, formerly a Tennessee State Trooper. I now work for Lake County Sheriff's Department.
What do you do at Lake County?
I'm a SRO,
Elementary, middle? or-
elementary.
Elementary.
Yes, sir.
So a little different from
Yes, sir.
highway patrol.
Quite a bit.
Well, thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened here?
Just a little bit of background. The weekend before this happened, I was covering 4 counties by myself. On Saturday night, I worked 4 crashes all by myself. So this particular Saturday night, there was me and one other trooper working. When I come on shift, another trooper was working a crash on State Route 21, so I went down to help him with his so he could go home. He had some property that needed to be taken to a lady who was in the crash's sister in Tiptonville, so I told him I would do that for him. I started to head to Tiptonville, and they called me to the crash up underneath the bridge. So I went up underneath the bridge. There was 3 bridge supports. I worked the crash. I looked over and saw the bridge support, and I assumed it was the last one, and it was the middle one. So when I backed out at a 90-degree angle, I thumped the bridge support with the trooper car. Well, when I went out on the crash underneath the bridge, I had a sergeant and a lieutenant in my troop that had both worked day shift that day. So there was nobody in my troop working sergeant. My only sergeant was in Benton County, which is an hour and a half away. When I went out on my crash, he went out on a crash helping a trooper where a helicopter was landing. So it was a pretty serious crash. And so everything going on, I made a bad decision to go ahead and run the stuff to Tiptonville while he was finishing up his crash. Go back to the crash site. I did have to get some follow-up evidence there. And as I was getting the follow-up evidence, he got off his crash in Benton County. At that point, I called him and told him what had happened. He told me to call dispatch and let them know, so I did. And so then when I did the report, I just did it as the time I reported the crash as opposed to the time of the crash.
So when you were questioned about it, I know the big thing here is the truthfulness. Did you fudge on that?
Well, when he asked me what happened when I showed up there, I told him exactly what I put in the crash. And then when he told me they had other facts, I said, yes, it happened before that. I used that. So that happened during the investigation.
How much damage was to the state's car?
The tail light was broken. There was a dent, and that was all I could see at the time. But apparently, it kind of warped the back door, and they had to replace the back door. I want to say it was around 4,000, maybe 45.
And you're an SRO now in
Yes,
what
sir.
county?
Lake County. My sheriff is actually here with me.
Seeing back there again. I'll yield to anybody else.
I guess what I'm hearing is you're not going back to state patrols,
No, sir.
and they're not gonna let him go back, so.
How many years did you have with patrol?
I had 9 years of highway patrol.
Any other hiccups with patrol?
The crash he was referring to, back, I want to say it was 2016. I went to eat dinner one night, and I was pulling out. I barely scraped the door on the car, and me and another trooper looked at it. It didn't look like it was just nothing but the sticker scraped off. And we didn't have a sergeant working that night either. So I went ahead and went home. And the next day when I come in, I drove right down to the post where the sergeant was, and I reported the incident then. And so they gave me a day off for not reporting the incident when it happened.
Oh. I deal with vehicle issues on a daily basis, and I've had nicks and scrapes, and that's just as much as we're on the road and things that we do, that kind of stuff's gonna happen. But I know the Department of Safety is very strict with their vehicle policy. I actually witnessed a wreck on the interstate one night at the I-24 scales. A trooper went down and turned the sign on, and he was out turning the sign on, and I was sitting in the median, and somebody came through and blatantly went plumb off the road and ran all over that trooper. And all he was worried about was the time he was going to get off. And I said, I'm sitting right here. You were out of the car. Well, he got that time off, and he was doing his job, going to turn that light on to say scales are open. I never could figure that out, but you know, when something happens, I know we're supposed to.
Yes, sir.
And was this in the Memphis? Were you assigned in the Memphis?
I was Memphis district, but at this time they had already moved us into Jackson.
How short-handed were they at that time?
Well, we were shorthanded as far as trooper wise, but we also, I think they had some kind of strawberry festival or something going on. They pulled a bunch of people for that. And then they were sending people down to Memphis to help out with Operation Grizzly. So we stayed shorthanded.
Okay.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we take.
I'll second that.
We have a motion on the floor and a second for no action. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. No action.
Thank you.
Sir, thank you for your service, and thank you for stepping up and wanting to protect our children.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right.
Moving on to Tennessee Department of Safety, Abel H. King. Mr. King was terminated for violation of policies and procedures. Sir, I know you've already identified yourself once. If you would do it again, just for the sake of the record.
Sergeant Jeremy Wilhite, Office of Professional Accountability, Department of Safety. We received information from Missouri Motor Vehicle Enforcement Division with their highway patrol. One of their inspectors had pulled in a truck and ran a history of inspections on that vehicle and noticed a suspicious number of times that one of our troopers had inspected that truck. They notified us. During the investigation, we discovered the driver of that truck was a former employee of the Tennessee Highway Patrol, was a trooper in the past, and had worked with Mr. King. We spoke to Mr. King. We started asking about the inspection reports that are done when an inspection is done on a tractor trailer or a commercial motor vehicle. And he had admitted to inspecting this gentleman's truck maybe once a month, maybe more. On two of these that we discovered by looking at his time and then the time on the inspection report, he was not working those days. So he admitted to falsifying the times on the inspection about a handful of times a year to benefit the driver's logbook. And there was one or two of these inspections, according to Mr. King, that were done without the driver or the truck being present. And he would use information from previous inspections and then make up brake measurement numbers to put on those inspections.
So what you're saying is that truck, via checking its logbooks, would show it might have been in California while it was being inspected in Tennessee.
Yes, sir.
It's kind of reversed back to when sometimes there was tickets issued at gravestones that they ever teach you that.
Exactly.
Long before computers.
Yes, sir.
Oh my.
Any questions from the committee? See here. He's here, yes, sir. Hearing none, sir, if you would just have a seat, we may call you back up. Mr. King, would you like to step up to the podium? If you would, for the record, just identify yourself by name. Tell us your side.
Yes, sir. My name is Abel King. Appreciate y'all letting me have this opportunity. What Sergeant Wilhite is referring to for the two inspections that I didn't do while I was physically at the vehicle. The driver, Mr. Jackson, would typically, when he's at home or would come off of his run, would try to do an inspection for him. The times that he's referring to that I did not go to the tractor that day was I was already off duty that day. So I would take his information and put it in Aspen for the day that he was actually home, not on the road, versus me going 10-8, taking my patrol car over there to check his truck then and then driving back home on my RDO and going 10-7. That's what he's referring to with that. But throughout the entire thing, I was completely honest with him from the start. Really, all I was doing was just trying to help out a fellow trooper with his inspections that he gets. And it was just out of convenience for him for the location where he lived at and the location where I lived at. Because usually, if I inspected his truck, it would be at a drop point, Owens Corning in Jackson. And I would go over there, physically inspect the truck, measure the brakes as I should, and check his log books, his ELT, and all that stuff.
How long were you with safety?
Sir,
How long were you with,
for 10 years.
and have you always been assigned to commercial motor vehicle?
No, sir, I was actually assigned to the road, but they handle CMV inspections also.
So were you assigned to a set of scales or part of a CMV district?
You mean portable scales? Was I
Or
assigned?
were you assigned
no, sir.
as
No,
a
sir.
county road trooper, or were you assigned to work with
Yes, sir.
a motor vehicle?
Yes, sir, road trooper.
He was a road trooper.
Yes, sir.
I've never known many road troopers that just had an inching to do a lot of truck inspections.
We have to do, I don't know if they changed it. It's 40 a year, I believe.
You have to do 40 a year. And I've never known many truckers that wanted to get inspected really often.
Yes, sir.
You see where I'm going with that?
Yes, sir.
And I just happen to be a CDL holder myself.
Mhm.
And I kind of speak from some experience.
The truck driver is a retired trooper, and that's the only reason why I was just trying to help.
Correct. But it's like an overabundance of inspections. And a retired trooper who would be properly trained, who would understand,
Yes, sir.
you see, would know if his brakes are out, or would if he had an air leak, or if his tires were low, or if his loads was unsecure,
Yes, sir.
or if he had oil leaks. That even heightens the situation here a little bit about, this is just, the reporting here is not good. What are you doing now?
Since I've been off, I've actually put myself through pilot school. I had actually applied with JPD to their aviation unit when I received this letter. So I'm in sort of a hold status right now
So
until this.
you got yourself into a situation where you're dealing with a lot of logbooks.
Sir,
You said pilot, you're trying to be a pilot.
yes, sir, I do have my license.
Do you understand how the scrutiny you're going to have as a pilot and the attention to detail
Yes, sir, I do.
and flight logs and inspections
Annual inspections, yes, sir, I do.
and the FAA does not play around.
No, sir, they don't.
I have a question.
You're
What's your plans? Plan to go back in law enforcement? You said something.
Yes, sir, I'd love to. I would love to finish out a career. I just hit 20 years with the military back in September, so I got my letter for retirement from them. Been a first sergeant, a drill sergeant, so I do know how to follow policy and procedure. I just made a bad decision trying to help out a fellow
I
trooper.
noticed on this write-up that he says a retired trooper that was a truck driver.
Yes, sir.
This came about because he got inspected and cleared.
Yes, sir. I think he got pulled around. He wasn't even in his truck. I think he was in another truck. They pulled him around for window 10. Or window
He's the
10.
one that dropped.
Sir?
He's the one that dropped it, that he had a friend in Tennessee.
Yes, sir.
No good favor goes. But did I hear you say that you applied with Jackson PD?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Where do you stand with that?
I'm in a hold status until this gets resolved. I went through the interview process and everything. And when I received the letter, during the interview, I disclosed it to them to let them know what was going on in case I just keep everything on the up and up.
A 2-hour accident is one thing to a bridging abutment. But, you know, these are looked upon as inspections that deal with federal dollars and, you know, a lot of federal, you know, this commercial motor vehicle stuff gets pretty complicated for the state.
Yes, sir.
I got told one time in a meeting over something dealing with a local interstate that I'd hate to know that a 60-foot gate would cause our state to lose $990 million federal transportation dollars. That 60 foot got my attention really quick. And I'd hate to know this inspection caused our accredited Department of Safety to lose.
Yes, sir.
Some kind of program.
If I could add a comment, I believe that this is somewhat of a personal agenda from some people within the Highway Patrol due to a similar incident with another trooper and a supervisor that involved over 30 fraudulent inspections, and both of those are still employed with the Highway Patrol.
So you're saying that they're picking on you? Is that it?
I would use the term picking on me, but I believe they came with this disciplinary action was a little excessive for what I've done and what the other two troopers did. And I would really like another shot at it. Not going back to the Highway Patrol, but just to keep my post commission. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, so you present that to us today. Did you appeal that determination? Did you go through the proper procedures?
Yes, sir, I did. Yes, sir, I did. The outcome was that they changed the termination to resign with prejudice.
I mean, sir, I respect, this one thing I don't like bringing.
If that wasn't a proper venue, I apologize for bringing it up. I was just.
No, it wasn't.
Okay, I apologize.
I don't, you know, we've had that before, and I just, you know, it's, you know, I've done a lot of bad things. I've done a lot of wrong things. I have to apologize for things. If I found somebody on the basketball court, I fouled them. It's not because somebody pushed them. Okay, and it's my fault, and I'm going to have to own a lot of stuff here today.
Yes, sir. That's what I'm doing.
But I know our Department of Safety is doing everything they can to keep a whole lot of people in the flow, and I just, every case had, you know, it's like I got a jailhouse. I got 400 beds in my jail, and everybody's in there thinks their time ought to be the same because they committed the same type of crime. Every case is different.
Yes, sir.
Everybody's histories and circumstances are different.
Mr. Chair, I have a motion. I'll make a motion to decertify.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Isbell. We have a second.
Would my disciplinary action come into history of that, come into play at all, or?
See if we get a second first, then we.
Oh, yes, sir. Okay, I apologize.
I'm gonna second Chief Isbell's motion.
And we have a motion to approve and by Commissioner Isbell, a second by Chairman Parton. Any discussion amongst our three committee members?
Well, I don't guess discussion. I understand the seriousness of it. I understand that the department has a right to do that, and they've exercised their right. He's been disciplined for it. He's moving on, they're moving on. You know, I'll have to vote against it, but I understand why y'all are doing it.
And I do too. I mean, if he, you know, whatever, however, it's pretty obvious what the vote will be, but
Is there any way he can voluntarily do something he's done before? I mean, this man's got how many years?
10 years with the highway patrol, yes, sir.
And, you know, I just hate to see that he apparently has a job like that. Like I said, we've all made mistakes. I myself am like chairman. I don't like the fact he's trying to blame it on somebody else. That's not,
Yes, sir.
that's fair. That almost split me over. So that's just how I feel about it.
did Jackson PD not want to come with you today?
No, sir, they did not.
Did they say why?
No, sir. I really didn't ask it to him. I've never been through this before, so I didn't know if I needed any representation or anything like that. My lawyer didn't show up either. So not that he didn't show up, I just didn't ask him to come up here.
Well, I mean, you've heard what's gone on here prior. This ain't the end of the world.
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna stand with my second to the motion.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, gentlemen, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed?
Me, no.
Okay. All right, the motion carries. So the request to decertify is approved. And Mr.
Go ahead.
Mr. Gregory's going to explain to him what his next steps are.
Mr. King, you were here earlier. I was talking to another officer. You'd have 30 days and the post commission will send you out a letter to this effect to appeal the informal committee's decision to the full commission, what's called a formal hearing. And the formal hearing, of course, would be pursuant to the Uniform Administrative Procedures Act. It would be a little bit more. We'd have an administrative law judge here in the whole commission, so it'd be a little bit more. That would be a full hearing as opposed to but you should get that in the mail sometime soon after the meeting. In terms of the instructions on what to do.
For the appeal?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Moving on. Assistant Director Bello, all the remaining folks, I'm going to call the roll one more time. And I think you'll like this, Mr. Chairman. Everybody on this list properly served, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So I'm going to call the roll one more time if it's all right with you. And we can actually do this in one vote at the end. So, all right, one more time. Mr. Lawson, James Lawson. Benjamin Desalines. Sharquan Henderson. David Kelso. James Martin. Eric Matthews. Michael Moon. Stephen Wright. Alexis Granger, Byron Johnson, Eric Kelly, Travis Pride, Vernon Sumner, Michael Tippett, Brea Wilder Cochran, Aaron Harrison, Devon Wheeler, Thomas Braswell, Alia Blazin, Mike Hill, Michael Riley, Chadwick Sanders, Anna Joel Sullivan, Jacoby Wright. All right, all of these are properly served. They are on the agenda and they are not present. And we can take, the motion would need to be that all of those not present be certified by default, correct? That sounds good.
Chair makes a motion to. Chair makes a motion to approve all by default listed names.
Mr. Chair, just for clarification, I will need to abstain from Henderson. I can vote on the others, but Henderson, I do not need to vote on.
One abstention.
Okay. We have
On one for Henderson.
Mr. Jeffers has to vote on that. So we have to do them separate, right?
Would you just prefer that we just pull in the alternate to vote on the entire group?
I'm fine with that. That's no problem.
That's fine.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion to approve all of those names we just read. They were properly served by default. We have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. And that concludes this informal hearing of the Tennessee Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Mayor Jeffries. Commissioner Jeffries from Scott County.
Man has got a lot of hats, man. He just goes up.
They just, Mayor, made available to have it.
I fell off. Literally.